What is your level of emotional intelligence skills, or EQ, being short for Emotional Intelligence Quotient? You probably already know that IQ and EQ are quite different from each other. Your IQ, or Intelligence Quotient range, appears to be inherited, while EQ skills must be learned and personally honed. Unique brain centers are believed to govern EQ, somewhat separate from those that govern purely cognitive and academic skills like math and science, or from areas that impact personality traits. Emotions arise in the amygdala, two tiny almond-shaped organs that function as the brain's early warning system related to potential threat. Ideally, when an emotion surfaces, inhibitory cognitive functions also participate in helping you decide what, if any, action is warranted based on information provided by the emotion. Typically, you make better decisions when you come to a cognitive conclusion and then check it out with your emotional gut. Emotions are faster than cognitive thinking, however, and are so powerful they can override cognitive functions in a nanosecond. Along with any wise decision-making, emotions can make any belief you have, valid or imagined, true or untrue, seem even more intense and real. When the amygdala detect what they believe is a threat, they leap into action, often triggering reactive behaviors that I have called JOT behaviors. More about them in a minute. If actual danger is present, the stress response can be life-saving. However, if the perceived threat is related to your past experiences, old learned behaviors, and imagined fears, the amygdala can make a mistake, triggering behaviors that you may sincerely regret later on. In this case, emotions can act like a dangerous street drug, creating serious misperceptions. In his book, The Brain and Emotional Intelligence, New Insights, Dr. Goleman suggests that the top 5 workplace triggers for the amygdala are a perception of being 1, disrespected or condescended to; 2, treated unfairly; 3, unappreciated; 4, unheard or not listened to, or held to unrealistic deadlines. It seems reasonable that these also play out in personal relationships, with, I suggest, the addition of several other triggers, such as a perceived lack of trust, real or imagined, a sense of competition rather than collaboration, a lack of basic honesty, and being on the receiving end of what at least one of the people involved perceives as less than desirable behaviors. So what is EQ? It is not emotions. It is a set of learned skills to help you manage emotions effectively and efficiently in a way that results in positive outcomes. I only talk about 4 core emotions: joy, anger, fear, and sadness, as those are believed to be inborn and can be seen on the face of a fetus during pregnancy, depending on what is happening to the mother. In the mid-90s, when Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence was released, the concept intrigued me, and I began studying the research. It soon became clear that I had some work to do, some skills to develop. If the adults in your childhood had high levels of EQ, you at least had the benefit of observing those skills, even if you decided to ignore them. If, on the other hand, your care providers had low levels of EQ, you may have learned dysfunctional responses and behaviors that are not serving you well in adulthood. The human brain was designed for relationships. High EQ not only improves relationships, it helps one brain to recognize similar wavelengths in another brain and enhances rapport. You can sense this when brain connections are smooth, pleasant, and engaged. According to Goleman, when in this state of rapport, brains can be not only more creative together, but more efficient in making decisions. Some might call this being on the same wavelength. Neil Rosenthal, LMFT, a licensed marriage and family therapist, expands on the state of rapport between brains. He has found that 3 elements characterize this type of special connection. The first element is mutual attention. Each brain pays attention to the other, and a sense of mutual interest functions as a perceptual glue. Unlike strangers who take little interest in who they brush past on the sidewalk, hopefully without colliding, brains in rapport choose to pay attention to each other and make time to connect, even briefly. Mutual empathy is the second element. There is a sense that each brain is tuning into the other's emotions and feelings. Through verbal and nonverbal interactions, each strives to build a sense of positivity in each other. They exhibit warmth through voice, expression, and nonverbal communication. And finally, rapport increases with mutual coordination or synchrony. Their brains are animated, comfortable, and immediately responsive. They consciously let each other know they are cared about and valued. They truly enjoy each other and the activities they share. As I began to build and hone EQ skills, it became easier to recognize less than desirable behaviors much more quickly, in myself as well as in others. What do low EQ behaviors look like? Any behavior that tends to result in negative outcomes, that creates messes that may or may not be able to be cleaned up. I have labeled them JOT behaviors. 3 commonly seen JOT behaviors are jumping to conclusions, overreacting, and taking things personally. Are you familiar with the Success Quotient, or SQ for short? This formula portrays overall success in life and goes like this: IQ plus EQ equals SQ. Sounds simple enough. But IQ and EQ do not contribute equally. IQ contributes only about 20%. EQ at least 80%. One benefit of high EQ is generally a reduction in JOT behaviors, which can allow for healthier and relatively low-stress relationships that are characterized by increased creativity, more efficient decision-making, and good rapport. No wonder high EQ contributes 4/5 to your overall success in life. It matters. When is the last time you exhibited a JOT behavior? Did it give you positive or negative outcomes? Did it enhance or diminish your personal and professional relationships? What do your answers suggest on a practical basis. That high EQ is your ace in the hole for overall success in the game of life because it helps you avoid or minimize job behaviors. You can raise your level of EQ by replacing job behaviors with more effective ones that I have termed AAA behaviors. Here they are. 1. Ask questions to clarify rather than jumping to conclusions that may be way off base and out in left field. 2. Act calmly as you assess the situation instead of launching into an overreaction, creating an emotional tsunami and blowing up a relationship bridge that may or may not be repairable. And 3, alter your perceptions or reframe the event to avoid taking things personally, recognizing that it may have little, if anything, to do with you. Every brain is unique and perceives events differently. To alter job behaviors, you first must identify, acknowledge, and own what your behaviors are contributing, recognizing that low EQ behaviors can and have more than once detonated a relationship bridge, often one of great value in your personal or professional life. Estimates are that at least 70% of the basis for a current disagreement in the moment has little to do with the present or the person with whom you are having a conflict. It has to do with your own past. In a sense, as someone once put it so cleverly, the past is never dead. It's not even past. You carry it within you, often as cellular memories. The more of the past you have identified, worked through, healed, and let go, the less likely the past is to pop up in the present and damage your current communications, relationships, and successes. Building EQ skills takes time, and it can be done. Raising your EQ requires personal choice, commitment, and practice. My brain's opinion is that building EQ skills is a required course for success in every area of life. You never graduate. Of course, as a second class is always available. It's definitely worth doing and makes for far more effective parenting or reparenting of yourself, leadership, and relational accord. The good news is that as you build EQ skills and tell your brain what you want it to do, your cognitive brain can override input from your amygdala within limits of actual danger that require immediate evasive action, of course. Remember, your brain can only do what it thinks it can do, and it's your job to tell it what it can do. EQ skills help you tell your brain what it can do and how you would like it to be accomplished. This may help explain the reason that individuals with high EQ tend to be more successful long-term than those with low EQ. High EQ helps prevent or minimize conflict, and conflict is expensive in every area of life. To recap, emotional intelligence is worth 80% of your overall success in life, and that includes health, longevity, and relationships. I want that. Not only do studies show that high EQ can help you stay younger and healthier for longer, your role modeling of high EQ behaviors can motivate others to raise their EQ. So, get on board. Build EQ skills. It is so worth it. In the end, you'll be glad you did, and so will everyone who knows you. High EQ is your ace in the hole for overall success in the game of life. EQ matters.